James, Emily, Ashlyn, thanks so much for joining today. So just to start, I'd love to get an brief overview, James and Emily, of Roswell, your role at Roswell, and what type of services you offer to e-commerce brands. And then Ashlyn, we can get to you later.
Sure, I'd be happy to take that one. So, Roswell's a 360 e-commerce agency. We started primarily as a development agency over 10 years ago, really became focused on e-commerce and especially the Shopify space. We were one of the first Shopify Plus partner agencies. And over time, we grew to have a full department as well as growth. So that includes retention marketing, paid ads, SEO, loyalty programs, that sort of thing. And so a lot of our clients come to us as a sort of 360 solution to all of their e-commerce service needs. And we work with them really heavily on strategy. And specifically, my role is business development and strategy. I do QBRs with our clients and, track their KPIs with them, make sure that they're meeting their goals and exceeding them, find new tools for them to implement and things that can help them along the way. And so, in that sense, it's really important for us to stay on top of the ecosystem with Shopify. We're very close partners, of course, with a lot of the large, critical apps like Klaviyo. But, things like Because have come along and just been really critical for us. It's been such a great partnership with them. Specifically, it's like, sort of turbocharging our push towards conversion rate optimization with clients that are really looking for solutions that they can act on to help them build their revenue quickly. And I think, gosh, we've done a lot of implementations to date with Because, and every one of them has been successful. It's something that we recommend frequently, and we don't make recommendations lightly. We really see it as our responsibility to understand, the full implications of different technology tools within the Shopify space, how they can benefit. Not every brand's the same. Some tools work in some cases and some they don't. So really understanding where the right places, correct applications are, that sort of thing is important to us. But really across the board, though, because of the flexibility, because as a customization tool, it's just made a whole lot of sense for a lot of our clients recently. And in each case, we've come through it with a lot of success. Ashland's team plays a big part in that too, getting our brands fully onboarded, during the trial period, really setting them up for success. They're very hands-on with that. And increasingly, we've been working together more as a partner with them on that level too, in terms of getting our brands, fully set up and tested.
Hi, I'm Emily. I'm the VP of Growth at Roswell. So I oversee the marketing department here and have since 2019. And we're a very passionate group of marketing professionals. We take a lot of pride in creating catered experiences that are very nuanced for each of our brands that we work with.
Thank you, Emily.
I'm Ashlyn, the founder and CEO of Because. We're a no-code solution for creating a dynamic website experience. So as a site visitor is moving throughout the site, we basically help to adapt the entire on-site experience according to who the site visitor is and what stage of the customer lifecycle they're in. And all of that is without a developer.
Cool. Yeah, so James and Emily, if we could walk through like how you work with brands. So typically I imagine there'd be high volume in terms of sales, transactions, traffic, if it's mainly Shopify Plus brands. But can you walk through the process as you're working with a brand who identifies that incremental lifts on conversion rate or improvements of the customer experience in terms of personalization would help? How do you break that apart in terms of like the strategy part and then the implementation and tactical execution for improving their sales through CRO strategies?
When we start with most new opportunities with most new clients, we are taking a look at their whole, ecosystem, everything that they're doing to bring in new, users, new visitors, all their attribution channels, how they're measuring those, things like what are they doing to, track those users to create segments that they can then follow up with and remarket to, or, email segments, things like that. And oftentimes we find, some pretty similar things, for example, people are heavily invested in paid ads, but very frequently, they're working either internally or with agencies that are overly focused on like myopically looking at things like ROAS, but not really accounting for what kind of incremental growth they're really generating for the brand. And so we want to be really smart about those budgets and think, what can we do, whether it's through retention or customization, to increase engagement, to increase conversion rates, and to test. And that's an important part of it. And that's why, because it's been really important, testing is extremely important in that context. And in some cases, maybe there's some, changes from a development standpoint or design standpoint that we want to implement site-wide that eventually we could do, but maybe we need to figure out what is going to work first. And so that gives us that flexibility, with Because, to really do that. But really our mission is to help find those ways that brands can incrementally grow and help them spend efficiently when it comes to paid channels. So make sure they're making the most out of the traffic that's coming to their sites.
And usually when we start working with a brand, we spend a lot of time getting to know their brand, asking a lot of questions, trying to get in their head, and also just to know their customers, know their subscribers, and what's going to appeal to them. And Because really, when we first talked to Ashland, we were so excited because it was like it made all of our dreams come true so easily. So we have all these theories about what's going to move the needle for brands, and we can do a lot of testing of personalization in campaigns and email and SMS, et cetera. And we can do a lot with on-site experience, but taking the level of personalization that we like to bring into email campaigns and going even beyond that and bringing it onto the site is just like an extension of what we were already doing, and it made us feel really empowered to make their dreams come true. And so I think that Because is one of the first things that we recommend typically when we're working with brands. We usually want to completely redo their marketing, completely redo like their email, their SMS, sometimes their tech stack, and then we always recommend Because as well. We're able to do so much with it.
That's great to hear. Any particular brands or examples that you can cite? Doesn't necessarily need to specify the brand, but would love to hear maybe some concrete examples of maybe that process and the before and after.
So let's see. A few of our brands that we work with, one of the ways that we found to use Because to make sale time or just promotions more effective is to show people how close they are to getting the next discount. So say if there's a tiered discount, we can show them how close they are to that next tier, thereby upping their order, making their cart bigger, making them more likely to convert. Another way that we've used that in a similar way is we have an apparel brand where if you add a certain number of shirts to your cart, you get a deal. So just showing people, hey, add one more shirt to your cart and you're going to get this deal, has really helped with increasing conversions as well.
And so more specifically, was that deal like a discount on that product or the threshold of free shipping?
That was a discount, but we have used it for free shipping as well. Yeah. And that when everybody has free shipping at a certain tier, so a certain cart size. So that is, that's a no-brainer kind of. That can be work with any brand, even if you don't have some kind of special deal going.
Oh, I was just going to say, and there's more subtle ways, to use it and to test, like on the PDP. So, in some instances, maybe you want to show a review, when, a customer visits the page based, all sorts of things based on their behaviors that, you can adjust. And those things really do, move the needle over time if you can find all of those ways that you can, help assist in that sale once the customer hits the PDP. It's very important.
Yeah. Any particular metrics that you focus on, KPIs, that actually do move the needle? Because ultimately, I think you're probably measured on the impact on revenue or conversion rate traffic as a full service agency. But if you tie it back to the CRO efforts, any numbers that you found that have really been nice wins as a result of these tests?
Conversion rate, that's the number one, definitely. But overall engagement and all the, all KPIs that are tied back to engagement, and in some cases, where there's opportunities to be upselling and talking about other products, through, the custom messaging, AOV can be another metric, just depending on how you're structuring the campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, revenue's always, as long as revenue's up, people don't really care about everything else, right? But getting more checkouts going, getting that cart value bigger, get the AOV bigger. And just another thing that nobody really talks about or you don't have as much visibility into is just shopper happiness and ease of shopping. So I think a lot of the things that Because does, it's not just about getting that conversion. It's also just making people happy and making it easier to shop the site. And that keeps people coming back. That makes them feel better about your brand, like you more. It also takes some of the pressure off of customer service a lot of the time. So it's really a holistic way of helping the shopper.
Yeah, for sure. I guess that would manifest as a lifetime value, maybe like
Yeah.
every people who went through. Cool. I mean, one of the challenges, it seems that many of these brands are hamstrung in terms of resources or have to delegate and prioritize ruthlessly, whether it's dev or money. Can you walk us through your process for prioritizing these tests, like what you're taking into account, and then how you ultimately prioritize them, and then like how you're actually running these tests?
Well, I think it tends to be a little different for everybody because everybody has a little bit of a different tech stack, or a lot of brands do. So if they have a loyalty program, there's so many things we can do with that information. Or if they're collecting data from their shoppers, like through a quiz or something like that, that gives us so much power and so many options. It can be a little overwhelming even, but typically we start with things that are going to be very obviously driving revenue. So sale messaging, reviews messaging, things like you're going to get this many points up, from this order based on a loyalty program, like Loyalty Lion. Those are usually where we like to start, but there's just infinite possibilities too.
If we were to kind of like take a step back and talk about actionable advice for e-commerce marketers who are trying to kind of like learn from you and your best practices and stuff that you've done, what knowledge might you impart on how they can improve their conversion rate overall, and how they just what mindset they can approach when thinking about their customer experience, their conversion rate, their site experience, and ultimately improving revenue with some of these tweaks that they might not be aware of that they could do?
I would say that there's a lot to subtlety, in your messaging, and sometimes there's a lot that you can find out by testing and experimentation that you might not have, otherwise be aware of. I mean, obviously, you want to have best practices implemented on your path to purchase so that you're not creating any friction. But people are motivated by different things, and that's why having that ability to subtly change messaging or change the offer, based on what people have done in the past is so helpful. And like I said, not all brands have, tons of cash to throw at, designing and redesigning and then putting all into this sort of thing into code and having multiple variations of their site going and that sort of thing. And so, it's a really, I mean, I'm always surprised at, how much even larger brands don't want to invest in that sort of thing. And so for a very broad range of our clients, something like this provides us with that great kind of easy path towards being able to figure out those subtleties and what the message, how the messaging and the offers can change people's behaviors. And it's not a small thing. I mean, it really moves the needle. And of course, I know it's fun to find the other KPIs, that are related and sort of in the halo around conversion rate, but conversion rate is really the central focus when it comes to customization, and it's what's going to show you whether or not you're moving the needle. And those, it's a serious impact. And so if you're thinking about the expense that is spent by most brands just driving traffic, if you can increase your conversion rate by 15, 20, or 25%, that is a significant shift in the revenue that you're driving for your business. It's a huge win.
I think a lot of brands too, they don't have the capacity to do as much A/B testing as because what allows just natively in the platform. So if you have a theory about what is going to help with those conversions or help with the on-site experience, you can easily test it very quickly depending on how much traffic you have on your site, of course. You have to have people there, but you can easily see what's going to help your brand and what's most appealing. And you can take those learnings outside of Because. You can take them outside of your website and apply them to other marketing, like your emails or SMS, et cetera.
Yeah. So wrapping up in terms of like forward-looking trend strategies, you have a very interesting perspective with these Shopify Plus brands and constantly testing new things. What are you seeing in terms of emerging trends or emerging opportunities that a marketer could think of and prepare for at the end of 2024, say Black Friday, Cyber Monday, or even 2020?
Well, I mean, I wouldn't say it's necessarily an emerging trend, but a constant theme is how do brands maintain the sales volume that they need without constantly discounting and, like marking down and training their, that's the constant problem is brands have trained their audiences to wait, for sales, whether that's Black Friday or just what is the, bi-weekly event that's going to move the needle for them. And so this is one of the fundamental ways that you can actually start to shift away from a strategy of constantly discounting your product and towards, more subtle messaging by increasing your conversion rate to accommodate for not having those sales, increasing your margins, but still moving the needle on your revenue by, offering like customized messaging. And so I don't know if it's so much a trend necessarily, because it's sort of that constant, drive that all brands are faced with. But
Mm-hmm.
it's really meaningful when brands can improve their margins. They have more to work with, and there's already enough to deal with in the D2C space, especially with apparel brands, with things like returns. And so really maximizing on those margins and preserving your brand integrity at the same time, I think, is a huge win. And this is definitely one of the most effective ways that you can do it. I mean, having a good retention program in place, really optimizing your site through customization, those sorts of things are so critical. And I guess that would be my answer.
Gotcha.
It's kind of buzzy too, but collecting zero and first party data and using that across all of your marketing and all of your channels, et cetera, is so important. And I think that is becoming more front and center for brands. So they can use that data to create better experiences, and also, like James was saying, like just not rely on those sales as much. People really appreciate a personal touch, and there's a lot of potential with that data.
Though brands often are coming at very different. They have different product categories. There's a lot of diversity within some of the brands that we work with, and so that's another thing too, is how to kind of really be speaking to those different audiences that you have. Maybe you are an outdoor brand that has women's apparel and men's apparel, but you also have like serious hardcore hard goods, and you're succeeding at selling all three, but you need to be talking very differently to those different consumers. And we see that a lot, and so brands in those positions sort of struggle to find ways to create better site experiences for those users. And the same is true if you're coming in from ad sets that are specifically oriented towards a different product set, or just a different event or something like that. If you can utilize customization tools to keep customers engaged from those ads, keep their mind, like they know that they're still on the same track, you're gonna see better engagement and better conversions.
Yeah, that is a nice segue to Because. And so just at a high level, Ashley, maybe you can add more color to this, but in terms of using zero-party data, first-party data, Emily, as you mentioned, you just gather your quiz results that would be stored in Klaviyo, and then you create dynamic segments. So depending on what segments you want shown and the rules engines that you set up in Because, people would have that different rule set. Or James, like you mentioned, using different ad campaigns, you would have a UTM tracker on what the campaign is, and then therefore the messaging would change dynamically as a result of the campaign that they were clicking on.
Yeah, a couple of cool use cases there. So with the quiz and zero party data, what you can do is basically funnel all of that data from like Octane or Digio into Klaviyo. You can then set up segments based off of the quiz result. So let's say it's like a beauty brand or a hair care brand or even like health and wellness. You can set up a different segment for like oily skin versus dry skin, or curly hair or straight hair, or needs more protein or needs more electrolytes. And then when a site visitor arrives on site, we can actually identify them using the Klaviyo cookie, and then we can basically personalize the entire experience according to their quiz result. So as a site visitor is moving to the collection page, we can actually adapt the badges on the product titles to say like picked for you if you are actually, you have curly hair or you have straight hair. We could do the same in the cart to actually recommend the appropriate products using those quiz results. We could do messaging on the product page that tells them to select the right variant. So any type of messaging based off of those quiz results. And then same goes on the opposite side, which would be anyone who hasn't taken the quiz yet. every brand wants and needs more zero-party data. So it's just really making sure that you're capturing site visitors who have not taken your quiz by just basically targeting the negative version of your Klaviyo segment of everyone who has taken the quiz. And then you can actually prompt opportunities to sign up for the quiz throughout the site in more strategic ways.
And really quick, just to say, one of the issues we come up against when we start working with brands is that a lot of times they'll have their tech stack that we might like a lot, like having Octane for quizzes and Loyalty Line for rewards programs, but they aren't doing enough with it. And so in the past, we've always taken that and used email marketing, et cetera, for pushing that in front of people's faces and making sure they're involved in the programs or getting them to go take that quiz. But it's because we can also take that experience onto the website and just have those really cool features of the website that are gathering data and are improving experience, make them front and center, and make sure we're utilizing them as best as they can be used.
All right, Ashlyn, I would love to hear from your perspective. James and Emily shared a lot on how they work with Because and brands. From your perspective, how have you worked with Roswell, and how does Roswell stand out as a premier partner of Because with their expertise and 360 services?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a couple of things that have really stood out to us as partners with Roswell. The first is that everyone at Roswell is just an extremely enjoyable person to work with. I think it's incredibly important when you work with an agency that you actually really enjoy the people that you're working with, because they really are an extension of your team. I think a lot of agencies don't quite have that same mindset where they really are operating like an extension of your team. We personally feel that from the partner side. So I think that's one of the things that would like make us really comfortable when referring a merchant over to Roswell. The second is just like the breadth of services. Roswell does so much. So if you're looking for like that full suite of services across retention, design, development, Klaviyo email marketing, implementing loyalty programs, implementing SMS, even like migrating from other platforms into Shopify or migrating between ESPs, Roswell literally has all of the knowledge, even social media as well. So all of the knowledge in one place and all of the right people and expertise to actually like bring your full service suite to life and really serve as an extension of your team. And then the last one that I think has been really the one that stood out to us is definitely their expertise on the retention side. I think a lot of brands, a lot of agencies, especially over like the last year or two, have been a lot more focused on the acquisition side rather than retention. I think retention is so smart to be focused there with just like everything that's been happening with the economy, rising cost of acquisition. Roswell is one of those agencies that really sharply has their eyes focused on retention and has a whole program around the loyalty program, all the services we've just discussed, Klaviyo email marketing, and then even the integration into Because to really provide for that loyalty experience on site and just driving repeat purchases with customers because it is so expensive to keep getting customers back to site. So that's a couple of the things that have stood out to us.
I love that.
Very cool.
Thanks.
And are there any particular brands or examples that you can cite? Doesn't necessarily need to mention the brand by name, because it does sound really interesting both in the first purchase but then also in the retention side. Sorry, I was just curious about, is there like one particular example that stands out that showcases the full suite, the focus on acquisition, personalization, CRO, and then also the retention side of it that demonstrates how Roswell works, how Because works, and how they work well together?
Yeah, I can like highlight a couple specifically as well as like at a high level. So I would say most of the brands that we work with together with Roswell have a tech stack with Klaviyo, typically a platform like Loyalty Line or one of the other loyalty platforms, maybe a quiz with like Octane. We do also work with a couple of Roswell clients that are on Attentive as well. But specifically on the Klaviyo side, any of the merchants that we're working with there's a couple of low-hanging fruit opportunities that we always implement that drive the most amount of conversion. So if we're trying to drive like that 10 to 20% conversion increase on places like the product page or the cart, the low-hanging fruit opportunities are typically a newsletter sign-up campaign. So targeting everyone who's coming to site who is not yet signed up for the newsletter, Because has a really amazing way of capturing site visitors a little bit later in the journey on site. The second you get to site, the first thing you do is just X out that pop-up because you're not ready to fill it out yet to get that welcome code. But when site visitors are moving throughout the journey and they're, wondering where that pop-up is because now they're ready to get the welcome code and sign up for the newsletter, that is a great opportunity to really serve them a more embedded experience later in the journey. So we typically do a newsletter sign up as a persistent top bar throughout the site so the site visitor can find it at any point point. And then we do also typically do a text-based sign up on the product page above the fold that will actually re-trigger the Klaviyo pop-up unit, a sign up unit. That's a really great way to drive those newsletter signups and then allow you to focus on retention of those customers, especially if they didn't make a purchase in that first session. And the second campaign that tends to be really good low hanging fruit is a welcome offer. So almost every brand that we work with Roswell has a welcome offer that Roswell has probably worked with them to develop, that's probably running through the welcome flow in Klaviyo. And the opportunity there is to basically identify anyone who has already signed up for the newsletter on site who has not yet made a purchase. It would typically be someone that's like a never purchase segment. And that's where Roswell has been so helpful to like build out all these different segments based off of the stage of the customer lifecycle. And then when the site visitor is on site, they'll basically be served up that welcome code, whether it's a static code or a dynamic code, to actually go ahead and make their first purchase. And then once they make their first purchase, that will be removed. So it's kind of just a stepper through the customer journey based off of the stage they're in.
Want to include this, but that is something that we always do in email flows and SMS journeys, et cetera, too. So that is another way where we take, the best practices that we've learned over the years and now have that ability to take that experience on site. We love it. So it really does help with conversions. And it also just gives people that reminder that they can use that code and keeps you from having to offer some kind of bigger incentive. That's usually the best incentive that you can get anyway. So why not just remind people of that if they still have it? And save the Black Friday, Cyber Monday deals for later.
And I know that we are working on an integration to Attentive as well. I know Roswell does work with some Attentive clients as well, and we do work on a few together. One of the ways that some Attentive merchants are seeing a lot of value is actually more on like the merchandising side. So one of the examples is a brand that we work with that's an apparel and fashion brand that has a really large product catalog of different options. It's really difficult for merchants or for site visitors to navigate that product catalog and figure out which products are best for them. They have dozens and dozens of collections. So one of the ways that Because supports that is actually replacing the theme badges in the Shopify theme that are very static. They don't provide any analytics and they're really not very customizable. So rather than having to get a developer involved to deploy all these different badges across site, Because can support that entire journey. Each badge could be related to different promos, to different messages like bestseller, new, even like custom printed or calling out different USPs of products. Those all have analytics and are A/B testable, and they're also schedulable. So you can schedule a start and end date, which makes it just really easy for the Roswell team that's managing all of the different merchandising across the site to be able to really quickly deploy those. I know that one's been a really popular use case with Attentive merchants, but then obviously on Klaviyo as well. A lot of merchants have found that one to be successful.
All right. I love it. Any other closing thoughts that you guys want to share?
I mean, I have one thought. I just, something we see a lot just because we get sort of a bird's eye view of e-commerce and is that to the earlier point that was made about, paying for remarketing, right? And bringing people back to a site and purchasing, through Meta or through Google. We really frequently see that if brands don't have a good system set up in terms of their retention marketing apparatus and in terms of their ability to convert customers when on site, they're investing all of those funds to those paid attribution channels in remarketing, too much of them. When you can turn that on its head by having a really good retention marketing program in place and by customization, on-site customizations and things like that, you can actually invest in incremental growth through paid channels. And so I think, what we see a lot is there are brands that are sort of stagnating. They got to a certain point, they found this audience, and they often don't even understand that what they're doing is they're recycling that audience over and over again because they're focused myopically on ROAS out of those channels. But, the way to break out of that is, by improving your conversion rate, by talking to your customers through your retention marketing platforms and bringing them back that way, so that you can you can focus on your paid channels as ways to expand that audience and really grow as a business.
Awesome. I do want to say one thing too. I really appreciate all your kind words, Ashland, about our team. We take a lot of pride in how sweet everybody is. And just they have a really great work ethic, and they really want to have our brand's best interests at heart. And we love working with partners that feel the same way. And I know that you and the team at Because have been just amazing partners to work with and really support our brands and our team members too. So thank you.
Yeah,
Appreciate that.
thank
Absolutely.
you. Hey, it's rare to find, just people that you see that eye to eye with and that, feel like an extension of the team. So we definitely value that.
Great relationship, definitely.
Awesome.
I think that is a wrap. James and Emily, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and time. Ashlyn, likewise, as always. So yeah, thank you so much, guys.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
meet
Great meeting you.
Thank you, guys.